Hello, my name is Greg Madison, and this is The Living Process. Welcome back. My guest this time is Frans Sandbergen. Frans is from the Netherlands, and we had a very interesting, at times, almost, I thought, slightly surreal conversation, which turned out to be a very nice instance of something that he has developed. It's called Theory M, and it's a process that I don't think I want to say very much about. I think it's more exciting to just find yourself in it in this episode. We also talk a little bit about France's way into focusing and meeting Gene Gendlin and working with Gene over a number of years. And yeah, how that has led to the kind of work that he does currently. So I think you will enjoy this. A very interesting conversation. Welcome back to the living process. And this time, I'm happy to say my guest is Frans Sandbergen. Is that right?
That's right.
The English version.
Yeah, that's right.
And I know very little about you. This is our first meeting, so I feel very open to hearing your story in reference to focusing and other things, and yeah, kind of hearing a little bit more about your passion and your journey. So how
I'd
did you,
love to share.
yeah, how did you get into focusing?
I got into focusing ever since I was at the age of 30. I had found my true profession, which turned out to be a profession I was already, well, not so much, yeah, also doing, but I was already what I recognized as my sort of true work. And that involved listening mainly
Okay.
and asking very essential questions. And once I found out that that could be work and a job even, I thought, well, the good news is that I already am that. It's in me, it's living, it's been there all along. So that's not something I would have to learn, but maybe on the professional side there is. And so I went out to look for training, education in this sense. Curious to what there is to learn on the listening aspects. And as I made a sort of self-designed route to try things out, I was mainly disappointed in what I found. I found many things far too instrumental um, and in that sense superficial. It was a really it disappointed me greatly. But and one of these disappointing days, two ladies in the tea break, we got to talk, and said something what I was looking for, and they looked at each other. They say, "Well, this is interesting. We've been doing something last year here in the neighborhood. It wasn't anything for us, but we think it's something for you." And then they mentioned focusing, and I found this such a strange remark that I could not let that pass. Something in me said, now I should sort it out. And I didn't understand. Started reading about it, bought Gene's book, and I didn't really get it, to be honest. And then I met this man, this educator, psychotherapist, trainer, um, very nice man, and he was very clearly very enthusiastic about this whole thing, focusing. But to be honest, I still didn't understand it. So I said to myself, well, one next attempt could be join him in an introductory course, which I did. And then as we entered, and I was happy that he just within a quarter of an hour he offered the first exercise, focusing exercise. And when that happened, it all fell into place. I was sort of relieved and like, oh, but I know this very, very well. It's been there for so many years. so well trained also, but with the one distinctive difference, and that was that the sort of more or less esoteric or spiritual judgment that had been involved in my life uh, was absent, completely absent. And that opened for me the recognizing of the complete rich attitude and source it was. So in a very strange way, it was offered. It came on my path, and once it was there, I know. Well, I can hear so much more to let through. You might say to enter into.
So let me just ask a question. That's an interesting way in because it sounds as though almost like life made you a listener. You already were that.
Yeah,
And then you got introduced to focusing in this kind of funny way where you didn't get it, but you persevered, which already is something. So many people would just go, yeah, I don't get it, and go on to something else, but you persevered. And then as soon as you saw it in practice, it seemed to resonate as something that you already knew something about at least.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it was like that.
But
Yeah,
you said this interesting thing, it came without a spiritual judgment.
yeah. Yeah, I have been. Then we have to go a bit earlier in my life story.
Okay.
Is that I think like all of us, we enter this world with great questions concerning what is this all about here, and what
Yeah.
am I doing here?
Hmm.
At least I had these quite conscious already as a young child. I think I suspect all of us do. But what I saw is that with many, it goes into the background more or less as life in all these forms and movements takes comes into play.
Hmm.
But with me, it really didn't really. It always stayed quite awake, and there was a moment that I was later realized I was about 8 or 9 years old. I came to the discovery that the moment that they would come and tell me the truth about this all, and I suspected it would have been my parents to do that, that it wouldn't come that moment. So something in me realized it's too late. It should already have happened by now. It's a very strange sort of
Hmm.
awakening, and it was also, of course, it was quite a shock too. And but at this more or less the same period, I realized, oh, I and we probably have to find out ourselves, and that's sort of big life research project started there.
Hmm.
Um, First by being open to what is interesting, what is in my environment that could indicate something or give indication. And I had to wait for 2 years or so, and then meditation came on my path. I was 11 years old, and my father came home with that, and he said, "Is anyone interested to join me? Because I find this interesting." It came on his path, and I said, "Of course." I knew, no hesitation, say yes, uh, because it's something at least.
Yeah.
Maybe it's nothing, but I try it. So I did, and it was really, really interesting, and I found it very difficult, but very rewarding too, as an inner exercise
Mhm.
of listening. And a couple of years later, I came into this Catholic secondary school where that was new to me too. I hadn't grown up in a religious tradition. So I was amazed at the richness of all of these tradition, in opposed to my classmates who all said bye bye church. Uh, I was no. I wanted to know. And 2 years later, my best friend, girl, went with her parents to a philosophical school in the nighttime in Amsterdam. And she talked about it in a way that made me completely awake. And I knew I have to go there too. I have to try this too, which I did. So I was then 14, 15, and there started. There was another moment of like with focusing, like oh my gosh, here is an entrance to a source or a number of sources.
Hmm.
So interesting. I can go on here for quite some time, which proved to be right. Because it started at 15 and I learned there to deepen meditation, to do contemplation exercise, silence exercise, everything that's now called mindfulness
Hmm.
is really a light version of what I trained there every day in many, many moments. And so that was, and we learned Sanskrit, and we learned to do calligraphy, and we learned to do Shakespeare with full attention, and everything was about full attention. It's
Wow.
very, very rich territory, and people of all ages and walks of life. It's amazing institution. But it also had a sort of shadow kind of side because there was always the what I call spiritual judgment. So a lot of self-observation, but always in the light of what is this in relation to the truth or a truth? No, it was not a truth; it was the truth, and with big concepts as the self,
Hmm.
as realization, self-realization. And we studied in Vedic tradition and early Christian and Platonic and many rich sources of it, but always self-observation in relation to does it serve the bigger truth or the ego? That was all part of the training. But as I got to know focusing, I realized to what extent that had become a sort of automatic way of listening and judging.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fascinating. It makes me curious about what happened when you learned focusing, where there isn't the same kind of claims built into it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That was amazing. Um, I basically learned or found out, experienced that everything that there is inside us, and in that case inside me, is worth listening to. That's one.
Hmm.
Uh, and is potentially a very rich source of further. And that gave me such um, a feeling, a rich feeling of being a sort of blissful traveler through life. Like, listen here, wherever I go, wherever I am, I can do this.
Hmm.
And with this sense of wonder. And I can be sure that more comes as I listen in this way,
Hmm.
which I did. I started doing that. And I wasn't so much interested in so-called problems. No, no, no. I was much more interested in the creating side of this, what it helps to bring forth, what it helps to appear. A bit opposed to many of my sort of co-students, because most of them were psychotherapists,
Hmm.
often very young people,
Yeah.
learning this as a professional skill, you might say. And they were all dealing with problems, and they were interested in problems and approach of problems. And I was not interested, but that was not my full, my full attention was much broader and richer.
That's a very interesting, different way into the practice and different emphasis in the practice. I think to not be sort of problem centered. And I think even not just therapists, but just ordinary focusers often default to what niggly problem do I have that needs my attention?
Mhm.
And it sounds like what you were bringing your attention to was something much broader. It's kind of like what is the creative edge of my experience?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious what happened next in your focusing journey now that you've found it.
Well, it was. I joined these. I learned this from a man, a wonderful man who had walked just a bit beside the officials' focused path that was developing.
Hmm.
He had been taught by Gene Gendlin himself in the early days in Leuven in Belgium, but then something happened that made him create his own way.
Hmm.
So he taught it in a very unique way. His name is René Maas. He passed away 2 years ago, and he was a really very interesting and intriguing teacher, and he was a true artist with language.
Mm.
And it was just an amazement to be with him and to be practicing with him or see him work with others, explaining. Wonderful, wonderful. And we spent one full day every 2 weeks, and I did that for basically 3 years. It's quite intense, and I loved it. It was wonderful. But at the same time, and it slowed down time in my experience. But looking back at it, I see now, no, 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 much more happened because I also found out that there was this focusing sort of subsidiary institute in Holland, in The Hague. And then they organized interesting courses and workshops. And I saw that this one author I had grown very fond of, Anne Weiser Cornell, would come. So I made sure I was there, and which was wonderful, and so very inspiring. And then as I went for a trip to New York in 99. I had, I think, also a private session with her, and I said to her, I'm going to the States. I'd like to meet a focusing person. Who can you recommend something, because it's coming from the other side of the ocean? Mm-hmm. And she said, sure, go to Gene Gendlin. And I was sort of frightened, like, no. I meant an ordinary person. So I tried to calm her down a bit. But for some reason, I later on thanked her for this. She was very strict, and she said, no. And she looked me right in the eye, and she said, you should go and try to see Gene Gendlin. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I surrender. I promise I will do that. And so I did that. I tried first to get in contact through email. That worked only partly. And the message was, just call me when you're there, and then we'll see. Okay. So I still remember calling quite nervously. And he picked up. And it turned out that we could meet 2 days later. And that was a true funny experience. Shall I tell you a bit about it?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Up till that moment, I had seen him on video recordings by Nada, and I had formed the image that it would be a very tall man, because I always saw his knees as he was sitting in chairs. Like, I thought, well, if this man stands up, he will be 2 meters at least. And so I remember standing at his door, and this rather small man opened and looked up to me and said, hi, come in. And I have a very strong memory of this scene of coming into a place with all paper everywhere, and him saying to me, take a seat. And I said, I looked like, take a seat? Where? And he said, no, there's a couch. That's a couch. And then I looked better and said, oh, it's a couch. And so I had to remove some paper. And yes, it was a couch, and I could sit. And he asked me something like, what brings you here, or something. And I was very curious what I would say. And and it turned out that I said that I had this longing, or this creation, this felt urge to give room for what it is that I should create. And it was a very strong feeling. And it got disappointed at many times. For instance, as I was in New York, we're at this wonderful bookstore, and in the section that interests me, I got very disappointed because something in me said, it's already there. Mm-hmm. It's already there. Mm-hmm. So why bother? And still the feeling kept on being there. And he listened in a way that made me forget about this whole strange scene with all these papers, and like in a movie scene. It got me to reflect quite concentrated very soon already. And it turned out that he understood perfectly. And he said, okay. He acknowledged this sense I had strongly. And that was very meaningful to me, that he made me realize it's real. It's
Mhm.
not something superficial or funny or strange or something to forget about. No, no, no. He was very, very appreciative of this,
Yeah, he took it seriously.
very much, and which was a happening for me inside.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe that was the most important thing. And he said a number of things. He said, well, don't go to these bookstores for the coming periods. Uh, that's one. That was, of course, useful enough. But also, what was, of course, more of a help was that he said something I would now translate to go to your inner bookstore. Um,
Mm.
and he didn't use these words, I think, but he said, develop an attention for what this is doing here, or what it is saying, or what it is, how it can be listened to, or how you can be present to that. That sort of remarks and encouragements he gave up to the point that he said, and devote some time in the week for this, and put that apart from production, other stuff you're doing, and that has to have an outcome. Put that apart. Spend some unburdened time. It's really good to say this to you now because it helps
Mhm.
me remember
Mhm. That
the need for
especially,
that.
yeah, that term unburdened.
Yeah,
It's like an open space just to really tune into this.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. So I still remember, I don't know how long this conversation has lasted then. Could have been 20 minutes, could also have been 2 hours. I honestly don't know. The time was not existing.
Hmm.
The only thing is I knew that I went out on a sort of with sort of wings,
Hmm.
um, and with a clear sense of what has to be done or wanted to be done. And I was so inspired that I went out to Central Park and bought myself a glass of way too expensive white wine and got drunk immediately from one glass, uh, which said it all. And but it stayed with me very strongly. Um, this sense, and that's was for me one of these, like we all have. We have these moments in our lives
Hmm.
that does something with the direction, with
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
shift something or open something or put consciously on your path.
Yeah.
That was clearly this.
Set you on a different course.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Even to the extent that I was a bit worried on the plane back 1 or 2 days later that my inspiration would maybe disturb the instruments in the for the pilots because that was how strong it felt. It didn't, I guess, but since we're here, but it was that strong. Yeah, yeah. And that from there on, it's so this is a clearly mark and
Hmm.
on the path. And um, in the meantime, after 3 years with Rene Maas, this was more or less where it ended because he this was all he had to offer.
Hmm. Hmm.
I also did supervision with him and other things, but um, it
Can I
was
just say, I'm really curious to hear how it goes on for you, but it really strikes me. I resonate with a lot of what you've said, partly about your childhood, but also about meeting Gene. And it really strikes me that in some ways, this is my experience at least, in some ways he seemed very ordinary.
yeah,
Like he didn't sort of wave his hands around and do some hocus pocus and suddenly you were changed. It was something so subtle And yet I think for a lot of people, meeting him was just such a profound experience.
Yeah,
Do you have any sense of what was it about being with him that enabled you to feel so clear in yourself?
it's a really nice question, Greg. I'm I'm now preparing for the Vienna conference later in the year.
Hmm.
I'm offering a workshop on which I called Gene's Gems. So what do we get from what later on followed is quite some. I had quite some meetings with him. I will tell you no
Hmm.
doubt a bit more about that later. But I'm asking people, what would you like to know? And I guess your question is maybe one of the most important ones. What is it
Hmm.
that that made this happen, or so
Hmm.
subtly have it's working?
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell, I must say. Um, it's sort of as it by entering the room or the conversation. Of course, there was always a bit of introductory sort of well things to being organized and settling down, and then it was there right away, like entering a sort of field or wavelength,
Hmm.
uh, which made other stuff or elements or what also was there to be on the side, like
Hmm.
maybe even as he originally described the second focusing movement, like it all it goes on the side. It's not. It's there. It's somewhere. We don't have to make it disappear, but there's this space and spaciousness and this full attention of to what appears in the moment. And I never saw him doing anything for
Hmm.
that,
Hmm.
nor myself.
Hmm.
It came, well, like he would say, I just heard a recording with one of my previous conversations with him, um, that we speak about what this element of something has to come. And this came, and it came immediately. And an interesting thing was to, I spent many hours with him, and it turned out, and wonderful enough. And but he was called many times by telephone. As I don't know if you have the experience. He was sometimes all the time. And the funny thing that was striking to me is that he would answer each call, and if it was, he tried to judge. I think can it be arranged briefly or not? But he took the time. So I witnessed a lot of calls with people I mostly never heard of, or up
Hmm.
to that point had not heard of. But it didn't bother, or it
Hmm.
didn't affect this
Hmm.
attention, this spaciousness, this
Hmm.
breath in the being together
Hmm.
with something that was amazing.
Yeah, I had forgotten that. I also had that experience. I mean,
Ah,
sometimes very mundane calls
yeah,
that he would take and sort of handle quickly and then come back, and it was like nothing had been disturbed.
true. Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, yeah. And even as he got older, uh, having to go to the bathroom and taking a lot of time, of course, because his walking was also
Hmm.
affected by age
Hmm.
and physical condition.
Hmm.
That didn't affect it either.
Hmm.
No, no.
Or going out for a cigarette.
Aha, exactly.
That's when you talk about him, it brings back to me what it was like to be with him as well. And I don't have an answer to that question, but as you were kind of attempting to answer it, I was thinking, yeah, it wasn't that he said something profound, and even he could often misunderstand or get it wrong. So it wasn't that he was always on the money, getting it right. But there was something about his presence, and I think you were really pointing at it. It was like this kind of cleared space where the present became very in focus.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what mattered suddenly appeared. And that it seemed so magical. And I don't know if it was because it was so simple.
Well, what I don't know if this is also your experience, but what I found out at first I didn't believe him really, because I 5 years later after this original meeting I had found the courage and the idea first, and then the courage and the complete enthusiasm to start to really study with him and with his help and as a teacher and what I found out, or what he already fairly soon started telling me, is that he found what I brought in, let's say my material, my thoughts, my findings, so interesting that he would try it out. He would use it with his clients, which he still had at the time when I started.
Mhm,
And at first I didn't believe him really. I thought he's just being nice.
mhm,
But then, fairly soon, he started telling something about it. Exactly why he thought this could help for this person without disclosing too much about the person, and what he told, and to what extent he could tell it, because he still wasn't sure whether he fully understood what I was pointing at. But he thought, I will give it to her anyway, because there's something in there that might help her. And he really gave this sort of report, and I listened very attentively, and I really realized it's true. He's doing this. And of course, I wanted to know more, but then he stopped. No, no, no. He would want to disclose more about this client. But it turned out to be the first discovery of a whole series that what we were talking, it was not just talking about,
mhm,
it was talking in. We were
mhm,
in both in the experience, and it mattered to him.
mhm,
He was part of it.
mhm,
And that took a while for me to realize, but I really found out, and fairly soon too, I must say, because on one time something in me took more time, but in another layer, he he was so clear about this. But I have a very clear instance of this. But then that's related to a bigger story. So let's see if that is a good moment, or maybe save it for.
Well, I'm curious, you're pointing now to how it developed further. You went something developed in you and you ended up back with Gene working on something specific, it sounds like.
Yeah,
I'm curious about that.
yeah. That's wonderful. I was too. That brought
Yeah.
me to him. Um so it's in 2004. Nada Lu came to Holland, bringing the introduction to TAE, and I had read about TAE, and I had become a member of the institute fairly soon already, after having to come to know focusing. And I read, and as I read it, I thought it was very difficult and tiring. And I thought, oh no, oh no, oh no, this is nothing for me. Um, Strong resistance. But then this Nadalu announcement came, and I read it, and something in me said, no, 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 you should go. So strongly that I didn't resist. I thought, okay, okay, okay. I tried. So I picked up the phone. This was before the email, I think, or the quicker way, and it was already fully booked. But then she said, "Yeah, well, there are more people, so we're seeing if we can organize a second weekend." And I was very happy, and it turned out to be the case. So as I got to go to this workshop, it was true. It was very tiring and very complicated. that part was true. But what I couldn't have known is that it was much more exciting than I could have expected. And the whole topic I brought in was something that was existing only for 2 years by that time. I had started writing with my old time writing friends, which relates back to the secondary school. We started writing together. And when we wrote together, it was like we sort of sat at a source or a sort of fountain that started doing magical things as we just started writing something. It was complete amazement about this energy that freed itself. Words, language creation, already at age 16, 17, a sort of life experience of unforgettableness. Ah, there's Elliot.
Yes.
I have my cat Nor here she entered the room too. She's also black, by the way. But and as we in the early years of this century, we got together again and found a reason to write because my friend Martin was not doing well. He had a sort of burnout kind of situation. He was very low in energy, and as something in me sensed maybe it could help if we start writing together again.
Mm.
There might be something beneficial in this or therapeutic. Also for me, by the way, not that I felt a strong need, but we had both this appreciation. And as we started to write about something seemingly innocent, it appeared that we started to write a little travel guide, which read in the first page, traveling to unknown Italy, part 14, Marfrano di Pietro Ventosa, a village we didn't know what it was. Something we had never heard of. We wrote about that, which was fun, and it gave him a faint smile and a bit of energy, me much more already. And as we continued writing, it appeared that we were describing a whole village with people and stories and the strangers of phenomena. And we had so much fun. We knew very well because we had that 20 years earlier. It had the same characteristics, but something very interestingly happened as we started talking about people, which you do, but when you are enthusiastic about it. Many of those people indicated that they would want to go there. They started asking with a very fairly urgent tone of voice, "Where is this? I need to go there. It's important." And maybe fairly soon even. And as this started happening more and more, my friend Martin and I said, well, this must mean it's real. And not physically real, but it must mean it's real. If you tell people a story about this and they want to go there, this is much stronger even than we experienced 20 years ago. We knew it was real, but nobody else did. But now people indicate they want to go there. So this must mean they want to go there. But how do we help them to go there? And then TAE came along, and I thought, well, I should bring this in, of course. And in this 2-day workshop by Nada, which she led very diligently and very strictly and very step by step as she does that, it opened up even more in a very interesting layer, like TAE promises, of course, that new language can come and new insight and new aspects and more depth. And it really started to happen. And it got me so excited that I knew here's much more. And that's how it all got started. So I became sort of in love with this way of listening without fully understanding it, by the way, because I only understood part. I kept on watching these DVDs. She was then bringing the early ones, and so I thought I had some sort of assumption that or idea that if I would listen many times enough, then at some point I would understand. It didn't really work like that, but it got me connected anyway. And it grew and grew and grew inside me to such an extent that I started seeing this is necessary, not just for me, but also in the job I was doing at the time, helping people to move into new professional territories, often when they, after having lost their jobs. I
Okay.
knew people like these have it, who overcome a crisis and want to find out what their true sort of route or
Hmm.
direction is in life, and maybe already has been, but maybe partly forgotten. This discovery is not only that discovery is importance, but also the language that they could develop or help to come forth from the discovery of who they are and what they see could prove to be of great meaning for the world. That became very clear to me, this sort of purpose of TAE, or the, yeah, well, the importance of it. So that combined with my city, so-called city,
Hmm.
once fictitious city, um, and this possible professional application together, enabled me to interest the board of the company I was with at the time to give me a sort of grant and to go and see if Mr. Gendlin would be willing um, to allow me to study with him in this TAE oriented way.
So in this writing with your friend, you found yourselves, it sounded like you started from nothing, not knowing where you were going. And you found that you created this imaginary place and that people responded to that in such a way, it evoked something that wasn't imaginary. It evoked some kind of knowing. And that's where you became very interested in what is this? That there's a kind of a knowing that can be evoked within people that they can find words for that then can have some kind of impact in their lives and in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm curious what happened next.
Well, as I got to ask Gene, which I found exciting to do because I wasn't sure at all, of course, whether he would recognize the question or that he would be available.
Yeah.
Or it turned out again that he seemed to recognize the question immediately and welcomed me, and which was, of course, to me a great excitement and yeah, also a blissful experience that I was to go to New York and to really focus on this
Mm.
wonderful territory yet to be further disclosed and discovered, and it was amazing. And um, so as we started working the summer of 2005, I went for the first time for a week. And then I would find out each time, because he as you no doubt know, a very distinct relationship with time and the agenda. And so the whole principle of call me when you're there um, remained and was created quite some unpredictability, whether I sometimes was to see him at all while I was there, having come for this purpose. Um, but it was okay right away because he helped me tune in, and he tuned in the ways I described a bit already, um, in what was there starting. I don't know if you recognize this. He also, it was clearly that he also was a very living person with real life also knocking at his door, and sometimes difficult things would happen in his life, and making it such that we could not have our appointment at his place, for instance. So then he would come to me at the place I was staying, and he was also there with the telephone and everything, I also witnessed that, you might say, because it just happened. One time he had to break off because he had to go home urgently, and in a situation like that. And then he said, and we were just entering it quite difficult territory in the conversation, and he said then, "Now I think this is a perfect spot for me to leave you." And I was sort of confused, angry later on, and um, like he would just walk away, having me there in the midst of some sort of thing, just entering a field.
Mhm.
But then I thought, well, okay, now let's take it seriously, and so I used his instruction, and it really got me somewhere. I still have a very good memory about that, picking it up anyway, and but his engaging, as we pointed at previously, was um, became even more evident in the second visit. Uh, Last day, I was in the doorway with my suitcase next to me because I would go straight to the airport after the last session. And then he said, in as I stood there at the door, he looked at me and he said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I had been wanting to ask you this before, but I forgot. Does Marfrano, the name of the city, does Marfrano have a university?" And I said, this took me by surprise. I said, "Well, I don't know, honestly, Gene, but something in me says that next time I'll be here, I will know." And of course, I knew right away there because a great cheer in me made itself known. Like, of course, how could we not have seen it? The University of Marfrano, which led to Martin and me to as I returned home, because he was also, of course, following whatever I was doing here with Gene, and we talked about it extensively, and he did his own research at the university, and so we found out about the university. We found how to enter it, and the discoveries that came from that are amazing, and this was not just a very funny question. It was a completely brilliant sort of invitation, and it proved that he himself. It led to the discovery of a university. You might say, in TE terms, became a term. Like now, when I or we guide people in the forums that developed ever since, we speak about this term studying at your own university,
Hmm.
which means the university you already are informed by your unique position in life.
Mhm.
What is already known there,
Mhm.
at least on the felt level. Maybe often it doesn't have words yet, or
Mhm.
not so much word, so many words. Um, this it led to this discovery, and it turned out that Gene himself um, became a student at this university too. And we discovered about the university that whoever appears there as a student is discovered as a professor right away after the entrance, after having entered the space. So he was part of it.
Mhm.
He came completely intrigued and amazed, and sometimes corrected me a bit when I gave a bit too much credit for one of the professors we had found there. But he was in there. Um, he got a lot from it too, and that is what I realized much later. But now I've come to see that is true. You could say we were in this together,
Mhm.
which is very touching too, and very exciting too
Mhm.
to me,
It,
because he was involved.
yeah, it's such a creative way of kind of um, populating what can be discovered through a TAE kind of process. It makes it much more imaginative and creative, it sounds like. It reminds me of, and maybe this is way off the mark, but and I don't play video games, but it reminds me a little bit of a video game
Hmm.
that you kind of you're really entering into a world
Yeah.
that it's sort of you interact with it and it's sort of keeps going on and you're really in it.
And it turned out that, of course, the official reason for studying in this way, uh, by now maybe I could say studying together, but was, of course, to form in the end a theory, a
Yeah.
TAE based theory.
Hmm.
But there was something interesting happening each time as we said goodbye. He would say, "Oh well, we still haven't done it yet," um, and later on I recognized I also said this to him. This is our running gag because this is, and sometimes he would say, "I'm to blame for this," and I said, "Well, I'm not completely sure where it's only you that is to blame." And by the way, maybe blaming is not the word because I guess we want to continue this to be continued. And I think my original focusing teacher, René Maas, he said, no, 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 no. What later on I told him a lot about this after Gene's passing. And he said, now I'm convinced that what you did there together must have meant as at least as much for him as it means to you.
Mm.
He was quite convinced about that. And that surprised me. But I guess something of that is true. That it really had and sometimes he would be very overt about that. He would say, I get a lot from this. I
Hmm.
learn a lot from this. I
Hmm.
really need it.
Hmm.
It helps me see this and that, and that's what kept on happening too, as it further developed. And yes, there came a theory which is still has the official status of being under construction as a result.
Is this theory M?
Yeah, theory M.
I'm
Yeah,
curious how you would describe that, at least its current state.
yeah. Well, it's funny. The piece itself, you might say, it's theory M, and the line below that, which is of course the main title, is the theory of coming to where you are. And the paper version stages of it is that it's still in formation, you might say, it's in the forming, but that didn't keep it from being applied all over the place. And in my professional practice, it's doing its. This is a phrasing. Uh, I just heard a recording that I say it's doing its wondrous works. You sometimes need to allow a certain amount of prescribed incubation time to do its wondrous works. And Gene was in praise of this kind of phrasing because he said, yeah, you use these words, these ordinary words. They aren't hocus pocus. They aren't this Latin Greek stuff like I do with intricacy and all of that. No, no, no. You tell it in plain language to do the wondrous works. So whoever we now in our practice, in my practice, we form guilds, listening guilds, people who want to learn to listen in a very distinct way with their full attention, inviting attention for the unique qualities of another person to come out. Um, I Whenever we teach new guild members within organizations mainly, when we introduce them to these listening principles, and we try to say to them, these are not just tools or not just instruments, or no, no, no. It's mainly about your attention and openness and genuine being interested. That's what it's all about. But of course, as I introduce them on the sideway, I also tell them about this connection we have in this work with the University of Marfrano, and then I tell a bit about it. And they know, of course, this is not an ordinary university. It's a bit strange, even this story, but this guy is having a lot of fun as he tells it, and he's serious at the same time. This is this gets it going, because then they get to see what this is all about. That the normal serious, the felt obligation to be serious about everything in this world is of course a mistake. If your lightness and your fun about what's happening can enter the scene as well, then we can be sure that you are serious fully, because everything is there, not just the serious face. Because the serious face is what's that? That's one layer only. We need more, and this helps them remember that also when you listen to another person, this should really be there. It would be of great value that is there, not just the ultra serious approach only. And that's the application too. And of course I refer to professors, I quote them even. I tell stories that are quite strange, really, but intriguingly strange. And they bring a message. Like this professor who is having this faculty that has is all about the eyes of amazement and wonder, and he teaches that, and he practices it, and he demonstrates it how it works. And there's an anecdote that I can tell then, and you see then that people, something in them recognizes. It's a fun story to listen to on one hand, but on the other hand, you can also hear, oh no, this is not just funny. It's not only funny. It's much more. So it's there are a lot of terms in the theory formed so far, and Gene encouraged me to have an editor, to have it explained through the pen of an editor. Which for me was an easy task, of course, because I would only have to go to the university press of Marfrano and ask the current editor. And he did a marvelous job. So that was easy for me. I didn't have to do it. So it's there. And all these terms, and some are short explained, others more at length, but they are used. So on one level, I would say it's still not formed. On the other hand, it's in complete use, which is fun.
It's slightly disorienting.
Is it?
Yeah, it's slightly disorienting because I'm kind of going back and forth between what I would observe happening in the shared reality and what is brought in from an alternative reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's I get the sense maybe you got beyond this. I keep trying to compare the two.
Oh yeah.
As though they're separate, but I think in some way you're wanting the imagination to highlight and evoke what is most real.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
They aren't two separate places in a way.
Well, that is the question. You could say I started developing the term, the distinction between the official world and the real world.
Yeah.
And most of us are trained or feel expected to appear mainly in the official world and behave like that,
Yeah.
using language that exists in that realm. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's part of our reality. But of course, the real world is something else. That's where we live.
Yeah.
And that's where we all have these strange thoughts and these strange questions and these funny images and while we're doing the official thing.
Yeah.
And now you could say what this the theory of coming to where you are points at is
Yeah.
each the capacity each and every one of us has to let that through
Yeah.
in the functioning in the official world, like we're having a serious conversation here, and and then you get this strange image or strange thought or strange question or what comes up, and then well, maybe you have already heard about this strange term I found for this, as Gene pointed me, really urged me to tell us and him how this can be, and how does it occur? How is it? What's happening? And then I said, um, upon his sort of very strong invitation, I said, well, it's all about following the smiling thought. And the term, it became a term right there, following the smiling thought. And of course, he had me explain what that is and everything. But it turns out to be something. I remember mentioning it for the first time publicly in a workshop by Donata about the process model, and I could see it happening as it reached people with this screen full of these co-attendants. And it's ever since I use it, and I use it now more also in the focusing world. It even comes back from other places to me, like it's coming from somewhere else. It's really funny, and how it should be, I think. But that's mainly, for me, that's a very, very helpful way um, of describing how it at least can be done, following of a smiling thought. Or something in us says, no, 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 no. This is not serious. This can't be here. Not in this scene, in this room. But then being a bit more gentle with yourself and allowing yourself to let it happen for just a little bit and see what it brings. That's where it starts to happen. It can start happening.
Yeah, I love that distinction between the official world and the real world
Yeah,
because it kind of shifts the bias a little bit,
yeah,
or the real lived world, the lived world becomes the real world rather than the official world being the real world
yeah, exactly.
and sort of dictating how one behaves and interacts and presents
Yeah,
oneself. Yeah.
all these supposed tos.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And so this looking at this from this slightly different angle can be quite a freeing um, of this felt obligation of I should behave
Yeah. Yeah.
in one
Exactly.
manner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And something in us knows this is only part of, of where we are, of what's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
And so the rest has to be left out.
Yeah.
That's a sort of crime almost.
Yeah. 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 Yes, I can sense what you have kept alive all the way along from your childhood all the way to the present, which is quite nice.
Oh, that's a beautiful way of phrasing. Yeah, you can
Mhm.
sense that.
Yeah, I can feel that. That
Uh-huh.
there's something that is childlike in the sense that children take for granted the freedom of it. And then as we develop and grow older, we take for granted the repression of it.
Hmm.
And that somehow you have kept it alive, especially in the work that you're just describing. You haven't allowed it to be kind of submerged underneath the official.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's wonderfully said. Yeah, and it is this. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, yeah. I remember
So,
one time with Gene, um, like saying the Santa Claus world is the real world. I said then back in 2005 and or something, and then he repeated that, he reflected that, and I got very enthusiastic. And then he and then he said, "Yes, but this is what you just said," and but to me, it proved how strongly felt this is
Hmm.
in me, like what you just now pointed at, that is true. And of course, they need to go together in the end. That's that the blending of that,
hmm hmm
the letting through.
hmm
Uh, that also became one of the terms of the theory, by the way. The letting through of the forgotten
hmm
um, is essential. Because of course
Yeah.
we wouldn't want as adults be in the playground all the time only or either.
Yeah.
Then something is also missing.
Yeah. The way it comes to me when I hear that is the letting through of the never forgotten, but the somehow unwelcome.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
becomes unwelcome, sadly, and the welcome needs to kind of be reasserted.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Can I ask, just in the work you do,
Yeah,
you do this in like companies
yeah,
or yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah. And companies and for you might say independent professionals alike.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you might say it's an invitation to for people who want to, of course they can be guided or coached individually or as a team or as part of a program. That's all also available. But this kind of attention, but it's all formed about um, it provides a complete being interested in this living uniqueness, this creating uniqueness each and every one of us has in a very, very distinct way.
hmm
But to you, when it concerns you, so common that you would hardly notice this to be special. And then if you would have a notion about it, something you would say, no, 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 Greg, no, don't imagine something. Uh, you're just a plain ordinary person. You're doing your best. You're doing maybe mostly doing a nice job, but don't start becoming too self-aware about your talents or something. Something in us is quite strongly developed in this,
hmm
and of course in the world of therapy we have terms for that too. But um, this is offering something else. This sort of remembers. Oh, I'm also allowed to let this go through. Yes, through the forgotten. And luckily, yes, it was never really forgotten. That's the discovery made mostly. And it's of worth, it's of value.
hmm
It is of value. It's maybe even more of value than your official profession. So we call it the inner profession. It
hmm
needs to, or the métier in the French word, but then in the sense of the inner métier,
hmm
and which really needs an own language and words. It cannot be
hmm
expressed in the ordinary language. But as it gets words, also, which is a happening, it's a sort of touching. It's a sort of touching moment.
hmm
It's allowed even more. So it works as a sort of. It appears to be working as a sort of permission to have it enter the room in many situations. And then this uniqueness, this other way of looking, this not what we already have that you bring, can come in and do its, well, I would say wondrous works, can find out how that can be
hmm
done, but the situation can benefit from that strongly, and it's because it's not from the official world.
Yeah. Can I ask, it raises two questions. I'm aware of time, but I want to just ask these two quite practical questions.
Yeah.
Um, One is in your working with teams, for example,
Hmm.
have you found sort of structures or processes or even steps or anything like that that helps a person bring this kind of inner professional more into the workplace in appropriate ways? That's the first question. And the second question related to it is if you're working with an individual, are there specific ways that you have found quite productive in helping someone that might be in a very responsible professional position bring in their inner professional and sort of make a space for it in their working life? Same question, kind of at the team level and the individual level.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the team level always starts with the individual level in this way of working.
Okay.
So the discovering of what is it that I bring
Hmm.
uniquely,
Hmm.
um, um, after having passed the inner border control that says, "Oh no, 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 no,"
Yeah.
uh,
Yes.
we give permits for that too, to go past it too. That is very helpful. um, Once you discover, it starts always with the discovery of this métier, this inner profession. Um, and once that, um, it needs incubation time. This is what I mentioned
Hmm.
earlier. So it needs time, space to really land, to really be received, and this is a process that starts then for years because it keeps on showing many interesting things. It's a sort of opening
Hmm.
of this other way of, well, it's studying at your own university. What is it? What is it that I appear to be knowing
Hmm.
in the strangest of situations or all sorts of situations?
Hmm.
Um, that's a whole road that opens, and that's really wonderful. And so it starts there, and with a team, the big thing would be to, or appears to be, that people sort of reintroduce themselves to each other in this sense.
Hmm.
So they hear completely new, and probably on one level also not so new, because somewhere it's known, um, and some recognize it
Hmm.
quite soon, and others don't. Need more time. But it's another way of looking. Like, oh, Greg, now I see. Now I start seeing what you are devoted to by
Hmm.
yourself, not because anyone told you. It's who you are. That's why now I understand where you are loyal to. That's now why I understand why you make these strange remarks, ask these terrible questions at times. Now I start to know what it's for and where it's from. And now I start to get maybe a vague notion, but that normally takes some time. What kind of questions I could ask you
Hmm.
in order to have your way of looking for me, or in the situation, or with the team. So then you might say the invitation extends. And it is, of course, also a discipline, because the normal tendency would
Yeah,
be to have the meetings like we have them all the time,
exactly. Yeah.
where there's not a very high listening quality around.
That's what I was thinking is um, because it has become, it's funny, all of everything has to be kind of stood on its head in a way. I was going to say it has become counterintuitive, but in fact, it is actually the most intuitive thing that you're supporting. But in the professional working environment, it's become kind of counterintuitive to make a space for that. And so I'm wondering, you must, or you must either be able to teach a way to keep supporting it so it doesn't go back underground,
Mhm.
or either you have to keep working with people or the team for quite
Yeah,
some time.
yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That's a discovery we made along the way, um, because the official world tends to take over, because
Yes.
that's where people live all the time, or at
Yeah.
least in the part they're working, and that's for most people quite a big part of their lives.
Yeah.
And it has a whole. That's another term we developed. It has its own magnetism,
Hmm.
so it attracts all the time to that way of looking.
Hmm.
But once you have these moments, these little gatherings with a person, or with the team, or with the guild, the listening guild, these stand out because they help remember. Like, oh yeah, um, something me sort of keeps forgetting also. But now that we are here again,
Hmm.
it's 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 again it becomes fully awake again. And
Hmm.
I have to look at how do I keep myself awake
Yeah.
in the meantime because it's really needed.
Hmm.
So yes, we recognized along the way it's necessary to regularly or irregularly have moments and meetings, big or small, that serve the purpose of not getting into the trap of thinking it's all instrumental, it's all just form, it's all just
Yeah.
official world stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. And individually, it's like that too.
The emancipation of the real world is always ongoing. It requires constantly freeing it up again so that it's not closed over by the official world because there's pressure on that side. It's like where the bank accounts are and all of that kind of stuff. So this kind of keeping it free and open is ongoing.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, looking at this from the instrumental side or the outside side, you might say,
Hmm.
the walking, the being outside, the movement. It in focusing this of course doesn't surprise us as focusers.
Hmm.
It invites the body to be the big listening instrument it is, uh, much more than just when you sit at the table and have the whole conversation there, like we do now, of course. But um, it's normally this really offers a much richer way of reflecting, um, which can be done quite easily. But it helps because it provides space and silence can be there, can also be invited. Um, it's easier to wander and to ponder. And there's a limited risk of overfocus.
Hmm.
And that's really, this
Yeah.
turns out to be really helpful. And
Yeah.
be spacious about it all, by the way.
Yeah.
Just not wanting to come to conclusions, but merely being happy when something opens up.
Hmm.
And yes, there's a lot more to be discovered or to be explored or whatever, but that's richness. And the appreciation of that, opposed to official world results, uh,
Hmm.
that say, no, 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 yes, we have done this and this and this and this. So we've had a good meeting.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's the other way
I'm
around.
I'm aware of the time and uh with the risk of jumping into the official world. I'm wondering, is there anything else? I feel like we covered a lot, and apologies for the interruptions.
That's
But
nice.
I feel like we covered a lot, and it was a much different conversation than I expected.
Ah,
Very, it was for me, it felt like an instance of the real in some way and the kind of the metaphoric, and rather than the kind of objective concrete or something.
yeah, exactly. Oh, that's very nice to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And how is that then for you now to be sort of, well, maybe experiencing
Hmm.
some of it, what we
Hmm.
are
Well,
talking
yeah,
about
I
here?
do. I mean, it certainly it evokes a deeper body sense in me, definitely. One that it feels like would unfold.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And is there also a faint smile involved somewhere?
Um, well, as almost always happens, there's always maybe a faint smile in it being uh, attended to. It's like just even if I don't know where it wants to go, but it's at least happy that I'm kind of in touch with it, going with it. It's almost like we're together now, and that always brings a kind of a yeah, almost like a smile. Yeah,
Mhm,
a
mhm,
body smile.
mhm. I don't know if you knew this, but um, did you see this in the background?
I did, yeah.
Uh, yeah, this is the little book I wrote along the way. It's Het Wil in Dutch means it wants. I just
Oh,
heard you say, I don't know where it wants to go.
yes.
It's all about this. And it's just, I started calling it a seemingly small book. Um, and maybe I was informed by the fact that Mary Hendricks Gentlin read the manuscript when I had just finished it. And she reported back that it really made her cry.
Oh.
With great sobs coming from somewhere inside. Like it refers, I guess it's because what you are pointing at, that
Hmm.
it's something that is so known,
Hmm.
but maybe had come to believe that it wasn't welcome
Hmm.
as such or not unadjusted.
Yeah.
Uh, um, Maybe it was because of that. It was really it surprised me how strong her felt appreciation was. But it's really nice how you put it, Greg. Like we're in this together now.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah. We're hand in hand.
yeah.
The way that you just said it, though, it reminds me of if I leave Elliot somewhere, my dog,
Mhm.
he waits.
Mm,
And it has that feeling. It's like something in me that has waited all this time.
mm,
And then when I show up, it has this kind of, rather than
mhm.
being annoyed that I've been away so long, it has this kind of, greeting of, like with Elliot, he's happy I'm back.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like there's no punishment for for me being away. He's just happy I'm back. It's that kind
yeah,
of feeling.
yeah, yeah. It's wonderful. If you put it like this, I have this maybe it's nice. Um, Maybe as part of the conclusion for now, or
Mhm.
conclusion, not a good word, the opening for now. Like Gene would enter a conversation, as you know, with the word thank you, and say goodbye with the word hello, hello, and which I always found quite wonderful. But as I got to disclose some more of this Marfrano university, there appears to be a professor to be quoted, and his name is Matteo Cogneto. And it says this. It's the title is "It Once." I dedicated it, of course, to Gene, the book. And it says this. He says, Cogneto says, "There's a creation waiting inside of you. Something wants your declaration of love. It wants to be happening. Almost nothing is needed. Just a little giving in to the small, almost nothing moment."
Yes, that's a nice place to pause for now.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like an ending
No,
for our conversation.
no. Is the book in English as well?
I have a translation, and I would like to bring it out as a book as well in English. Yeah, I haven't done it
Good.
yet, but maybe the coming up of Vienna is tempting to do that. For Vienna, I'm preparing this workshop about Gene's gems,
Hmm.
sharing them, and I started asking people, what is it that you would really like to know if you don't know about Gene, or that much about him, or don't have the experience yourself. What would you like to know from that experience? And of course, you have experience with him, but maybe others who see or listen to this conversation don't. And so it's for me also a nice way to spreading the invitation. And um, any question is quite welcome.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
See
Yeah.
what we can learn from him more.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg, for your
Okay.
wonderful attention.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.
Yeah. See you later.